Hey, Aaron Adams here with Infinity Investing. I wanted to take a few minutes today and discuss fraud that takes place to new homeowners and new investors as it relates to real estate. And I've been a real estate investor for 22 years and have purchased thousands of properties all over the U.S. We're currently managing about $300 million worth of rental property. My teams and I are buying and selling 50 to 75 properties a month. And I've gone from teaching high school 22 years ago to amassing a real estate portfolio of over $30 million. And so in purchasing foreclosure properties and going to tax sales and seeing other things that are happening, I've seen a lot of fraud that takes place. I've seen a lot of scams. So I wanted to highlight for a few of them, just so that you as a homeowner, or you as an investor, or you as someone who maybe is hoping to own a home can avoid some of these traps. One of the most common areas of fraud that I've seen is with respect to not doing an insured closing. Now, when you look at buying property around the world, in some parts of the world, it can be very risky to buy property. In fact, some people won't even get into investing in terms of property ownership just because titles and the security of a title can be such a tenuous subject. And in some areas of the world, if I want to buy a house from you, I have to go back and look at the property records all the way to when that property was first built down at the city or down at the county area and research that title myself. Here in the US, we have what are called insured closings. So if you live in California, there's an escrow company near you. If you live in Chicago or North Carolina, you go to a lawyer who handles closing on properties. But when you buy property from someone else, you can get title insurance. And what that means is that if I buy a house from you that's 300 years old in Chicago, that I can buy an insurance policy that says that I have the clear right to own that property and that you have the clear right to sell that. And if anyone were to come in, let's say somebody comes and says, no, I'm 90 years old. My dad deeded that property to me in his will, and they contest my ownership and say I should be the owner, that the insurance company protects my investment, protects my money, and guarantees that I own that property. Otherwise, the insurance company will have to pay to fix the title and clean it up. And so one of the most common areas of mortgage fraud that I've seen on unsuspecting homeowners is someone will advertise a property for sale by owner, and they'll tell them that they're just going to sign a quit claim deed over to them. They're just going to release the title. And they'll say, I'm going to give you a contract and I'm going to sign the title over to you. And we can go down to the city and record that. And the problem with that is anyone can record property can record a lien against property anywhere. It doesn't mean that there isn't other claims on that property. There could be IRS liens, there could be disputes from other heirs. And so a lot of times people will do a closing that's not insured. They'll do it outside of a title company. They won't use a lawyer. They won't use escrow. And so from one investor who's bought thousands of properties to somebody who's watching this wondering about that, always be very suspicious if somebody is just trying to sign over property to you. If they say, let's not go through title, or let's not use a lawyer. It's so expensive. I'll just sign it over to you. I'll just release the deed. And they may not have clear ownership to the property. And whatever you pay for that could mean that now you don't have clear ownership to the property. And so always beware of anyone that encourages, and I always insist on an insured closing. Even when it's a property that I have title insurance on, and maybe I bought it a year ago and now I'm going to sell it to someone else, I always still get title insurance as the seller and encourage them to pay for it. It's worth it. And you're really stepping over dollars to pick up pennies when you try to avoid that. Now, I've seen a lot of mortgage fraud over the years. Back in 2007, 2008, there were a lot of incidents of what's called straw buyers. I knew an elderly lady. She'd never owned a home. She'd been a renter her whole life. And she was approached by someone at church that said, hey, I want to pay you $10,000 to borrow your credit. She said, what do you mean? They said, I can't qualify for a mortgage, so I want to use your credit score to apply for the mortgage, and then I'll just give you $10,000 for that. Well, it sounded like a good deal to her because $10,000 was a lot of money. And she wasn't really using her credit. She didn't have credit cards. She did everything cash. She was a renter, so she didn't really care about her credit score. And so she gave them permission to apply for the mortgage with her credit score. And what they did was call a pump and dump. And so they bought a house very cheap at an auction for about $25,000. They did a bunch of cosmetic repairs. They got a fraudulent appraisal for $200,000, used her credit score to get the loan. They took all of that $180,000, gave her 10, and went running off, and then let the property go to default and go to foreclosure under her credit. So it ruined her credit. She only got $10,000. They made off with $170,000. Okay, plus they got their 20 grand back. So good deal for them, horrible deal for her. She was the straw buyer, and her credit was ruined for 7 or 8 years. So there's been a lot of incidents of mortgage fraud when mortgage standards start to drop. Prior to the crash that we had in 2008, anybody could get a loan. They were called liar loans. And so as an investor, you want to be aware of this happening. You want to periodically check your credit so that you can avoid that. And the other thing you want to think about is if you're buying property, sometimes the seller will offer to be the bank for you. They'll offer to be the lender for you. When I see this occur, I'm always nervous because the devil's in the details, and you want to really bring in a third party to explain the agreement. I've seen people that had mortgages that went up every year. I saw people paying 13% annual percentage rate on a mortgage. I've seen people get into some really bad incidents that were legal but not good for them. There's a term called a balloon in a loan where it says, the payment is based on 30 years, but in 3 years you have to pay us all of it. So you either have to sell the property or get another loan. What if you can't get another loan? And so there's a lot of different scams out there. There's a lot of different ways that people are trying to take advantage of you. Another one, the last one that I wanted to mention is with lease options. Always beware of a rent-to-own scenario as a buyer, because very seldom will that person selling the property give you paperwork that entitles you to be an owner. A lot of them sound like you're renting to buy, but really you're just renting. You're not secured on the property. They don't put you on title. And so again, even with a lease option scenario, I want you to think about using an insured closing. Insisting, yeah, that's great. I'm happy with, but I want to be recorded on title, and I want to run this through escrow, or I want to use an attorney to handle this closing, and I want to get title insurance. And if you'll focus on keeping things formal and using attorneys and not doing real estate deals on the side without paperwork, without a third party overseeing the transaction, you'll eliminate a lot of the potential for fraud that's out there. Never let anyone borrow your credit. Never beware of credit restoration companies. Beware of sellers offering the loans on the properties themselves, and you'll navigate a lot of the fraud that's out there. If this is resonating with you, if this has been a topic that you're interested with, jump over to infinityinvesting.com, get signed up with our free basic membership, and join us at our free all-day monthly virtual training that we do, where we bring in the very best investors to talk about how to invest safely in the stock market, how to get into real estate investing, and really start filling in the gaps to move your financial education forward.